What is going on, Governors? Chisgule here, and today we're watching Abe and ShadowAdam take rallies. This took place a couple days ago when we had a fort build. We were attempting to break out of the zone. It wasn't successful, but I thought it was a really good attempt. I thought we did a really great job, and now we're left behind. You saw when I got rallied, you saw Abe is getting rallied, and then ShadowAdam gets rallied. Now, Abe wanted to take this rally. He did not have War Frenzy. ShadowAdam wanted to take a rally. He took several in the KVK versus 114. We made a number of videos about that. In fact, card is up in the top if you want to see when that took place. It was pretty wild how many times people rallied ShadowAdam to see if they could freaking take some power off him, which they could not. So now Abe is getting rallied, and he's got Amanitore with YSS. Now you may be wondering, well, what about Xeno? Abe has Xeno, right? And he does, but you don't want to use Xeno into a Gilgamesh Nebu rally. And you can see this Gilgamesh Nebu rally does a lot of work on Abe's city, and I have a theory as to why that might be the case, which we'll explore when we look at the battle reports in just a moment. You'll also notice that I am cycling siege marches into Abe's city. Also, ShadowAdam is doing the same thing. Between the two of us, at any moment in time, we have over 900,000 T5 siege in Abe's city, which is pretty good. We're going to pull those marches out, and we refresh them part of the way through there. So the marches do get a little bit low. And at the very end, we peace out of his city so that he can pop the peace shield, and he's safe. If I remember correctly, he did not have any deads. But let's go get a look at the reports here and see exactly what happened. We'll look at his gear and talents, and I'll give you a few theories as to how we could maybe elevate his garrison. Here is Abe's Amanitore, which is pretty freaking decked out. He's got the 2-piece bonus from the revival set, which I think is a very solid play in order to get the 3% of bonus stats. We'll go and actually look in game at the exact amount of stat boost that you get to all troop types, which is definitely relevant. Also, he's got the ring and the horn, which I think are very good choices. He's got 2 pieces of the archer set, giving him another stat boost there. He does have the Milky Way special talented. That's a lot of archer health. And he's got the KVK crossbow, not talented. I do wonder, I mean, I don't know. He could have gone, like, if he's got the pieces for it, maybe he could have gone for the whole, like, 2-piece set bonus from all 3 sets. That's the thing he could have done. But because some of this gear is talented for archers, that does give him a lot of bonus stats in and of itself. And here is where I think we could start to improve Abe's garrison. He's got this build over here, and I actually really like a lot that's happening in this build, with one really, really important exception here, and that's the points that he's got all the way in the bottom left. I believe that that only works for stronghold garrisons, but not for city defenses. In other words, I think he's got some talent points here that don't actually help him at all in this scenario, and they're good points for other things, and I think this is an interesting build, although I don't know if I'd even say this is the best build for Amanitore for defending a flag or garrison, but let me just jump back over and let's talk about that. So here is an Amanitore build that I put together that I think would probably be better for city defense. And I shred the Kingsguard points because it says leading a stronghold garrison, not a city. A city does not qualify as a stronghold garrison. And you know that because over here they say when leading a garrison of a city or stronghold. Here it says when leading the garrison of a city or stronghold. And the whole reason I have been feeling like the garrison tree needs a little bit of love is that it doesn't make any sense. Like, there's points in here that are really good for a flag, and there's points in here that are really good for not a flag, for just your city. So there's no world in which you'd ever want to be, or you never could be, perfectly optimized for, like, either scenario to go all the way to the top here and get divine favor. Do you see what I mean? Like, divine favor and a full garrison build should be a really cool, viable thing, but because these talents, Know Thy Enemy and Kingsguard, are at direct opposition, you either get the benefit of one maybe or the other maybe. It makes it so that there's not really value in going all the way up here. Plus, man, City Guardian and Adamantine Walls are just kind of terrible, to my understanding anyways, so I think Abe's build, if he had gone with this, would have been better. Now, what have I picked up that he didn't have? I went all the way into Razor Sharp for extra rage generation. I feel like that's important. 9 rage per turn could make a difference here. Also, I went and I got Expert Design. This is giving 6% siege, defense, health, and attack, which is a big deal for 3 points. Technically, there's 1 point over here, which is giving 0.5% of health to everything you have. So 4 points for all those stats seems really, really viable and valuable to me because ShadowAdam and I were right next to his city. And over the course of that fight, we cycled in close to almost 2 million siege units into his city. So on top of the siege he has, also the siege we were dumping in there, I actually think this could have made kind of a big difference in the overall result. This is really important, which he had arrows knocked when you get below 50%. I went with armed and armored, but you could instead go with rapid fire. That might actually be better for the normal attack damage boost. But I think that's how we might have been able to slightly elevate Abe's Garrison here. And if I just go to the report, we get a peek at that real quick. Let's jump to it. Here is the final result. I realize now I probably should have showed the report first. 41,000 dead for Abe, and that's just us really defending his city. And then 701,000 sev wounds. And there's 507,000 dead for the rally. So obviously a positive trade overall. I don't think much about the resource cost of the sev wounds in this context, largely because that feels like it's almost like a rounding error worth of resources from open field fighting when you think about just like a big brawl going on. But there's also a little bit of dead from the AoE, 24,500, and then a bunch of one troops that were trying to reduce the effectiveness of the AoE from Abe, which was definitely relevant. That did, I think, make a little bit of a difference there. And in terms of the overall stats, here's what we're looking at. Interesting to get a look at Cyber's rally here. Archer attack of 189, defense of 188.5, and health is quite impressive at 122.5. That is a lot of Archer health. Now, keep in mind, Abe's stats are going to look a little bit lower because he's using a YSS. So if you try to compare the Archer stats, that doesn't really make sense exactly because YSS is in many ways kind of like a stat stick. And a lot of those stat boosts are conditional, which are not necessarily going to show up here. They would show up in the detailed battle log where you'd see that the YSS skills are coming into play for having multiple troop types. But on the topic of multiple troop types, if we look at what was in his city, you can see Abe had 750,000 siege, and he's got 1.2 million archers. So it makes sense that he didn't use, I think, the Amanitore Artemisia combo. I think that YSS was a better choice here. And given the captains that he had available to him, I think this makes sense to run the Amanitore. I think with the slightly modified build, you'd get a slightly better result. And you can see that he did have other players filling his city, some cavs, some infantry. And here is where you can see we were just stuffing a ton of T5 siege. These were not in the city all at once, but we each cycled out and then back in with a new march. So that's how we got so many in there. I actually should have used something other than Saladin and Quan. I think that was just to move really fast to not get hit by their marches, but they didn't have that many marches over there anyways. So that was actually kind of unnecessary. I should have just gone with a fatter march there to get more troops into his city. But that is what Abe had, and that was how his defense performed. He ultimately had no dead troops. The only deads in this report is his watchtower, which almost certainly died within the first couple turns of combat anyways. And you may recall from my previous video where I called out that having lower tiers of units is very dangerous. I mean, you can see Abe has 474,000 T1 siege, and that became 62,000 of his hospital capacity. There is, however, 50,000 extra capacity in your hospital for these battering rams. So it does make sense for every player to have to the tune of like 400,000 T1 siege, because those will go to a separate zone. And based on approximately how much his hospital was filling, I don't think if you had 400,000 of the T1 siege that you would exceed the 50,000 of dedicated space for the T1 battering rams. So that's kind of like free, sort of, on top of what you had. It's very loosey-goosey. It's like sort of free. But anyways, maybe I'm going off the deep end on things that people aren't all that interested in. But you'll notice that, you know, even though T4s don't make up a huge percentage of the troops that he has. They do make up a pretty decent portion of the hospital, especially, oh man, those T1s and a lot of cavalry hit the hospital here, which is kind of interesting. But let's jump over now to the ShadowAdam rally, shall we? Here is the rally on ShadowAdam City, and it's an Attila Takeda, which is not going to be adequate for a player like ShadowAdam. At the time of this recording, he's still like 134 million power. He's got the king buff, so he can't be imprisoned. Technically, I think he should have been one-trooping his own rally. I guess that's a thing. And he's using Xeno YSS. I say technically he should have been one-trooping the rally, but he is going to dunk this rally so unbelievably, it's not all that relevant. It's honestly shocking how well this goes. Not only does Xeno YSS really in many ways like hard counter Attila Takeda, but ShadowAdam has a really good build, and we've stuffed a lot of troops into his city. And this rally is not properly getting reinforced. You can see it goes down to like full red really quickly. The city is still practically full. I was honestly shocked. I mean, we've honestly like achieved escape velocity on the healing here where like they're just not doing enough damage to possibly harm the city. And this rally is run catastrophically into the ground, which on the topic of catastrophic, let's go look at the report. 948,000 dead for the rally. That is a full 7.2 million power loss. And for the Garrison, 13,500 deads. That's reinforcements in his city. And the Sev wounds, the hospital fill, is 215,000. Still a pretty decent amount of hospital fill in the grand scheme of things, but very little permanent power loss for the folks in Kingdom 75. And if we get a look at what is actually in his city, we can see here that there is a lot of siege. Not that he's like overtrained on siege, but he's got 620,000 T5 plus 384,000 T4 plus a bunch of siege that we're reinforcing him with at any time. It's almost like 900,000 between me and Abe. So he's got a lot of siege in there. And I mention that because that is going to perform well with Xeno. Xeno's giving all damage. Xeno's giving health from her active skill. But also when we look at the build, he did get those points in Expert Siege Design, which kind of make a big difference. I mean, 3 points for 18% of stats total is kind of a big deal. Let's jump to his talent build. Here's the build that ShadowAdam was using, and I really like the Expert Design over here for the siege points. I'll point out that because it was Attila Takeda, you don't need this skill damage taken reduction unless you were going to get swarmed potentially, which could have happened. Goodfather swarmed my city. Could have happened. And if we look at his equipment, I mean, obviously it's pretty solid over here. I'll just scoot this picture over so you can see. It's the infantry set. It's almost entirely talented. In fact, he's got a talented ring, which is really, really good. It's really good. He's got the KVK helmet and the horn. I think ring horn is just a phenomenal choice, especially for a single rally. So I really like the equipment that he's got here. And all in all, it led to a really great report. If I just get a quick look, there was only one troop here, so not a lot of AoE action. And there were a few reinforcements that he got from players. Wait a minute. Training complete. ShadowAdam trained 104,000 troops, 52,000 troops. Yo, this is whale moves right here. This is whale moves right here. He big trained in the middle of the rally on his city to do more damage. What a freaking boss. Holy moly, man. I remember that now. We were on voice and he was like, F it, I'm going to train some troops. Get wrecked. Okay. Well, if you enjoyed this video, throw a like on here. Consider subscribing. And if you didn't see the video where my city got rallied, that was definitely precarious when I started getting swarmed. Card will be up in the top to check that one out. Just tap the little info button. And until next time, you have fun smashing your enemies.